What's up everyone? My name is Chris Sorenza, Not Your Mama's Pasta on Instagram. And I've had a lot of requests from my customers to put this together, so today I'm gonna show you how to make the hands down greatest pasta you'll ever eat in your entire life. And it is my spin on the traditional pasta carbonara from Rome. Now I've made this dish thousands of times for my customers using many different methods, but nothing really competes with tradition. And I have just a slight tweak to the technique that's even a little scientific because I create a true emulsion to perfectly sauce the pasta. And in my opinion, it's even better than any of the carbonara I had when I was in Rome. So take some notes. Let's get started. So the ingredients are simple. Just like any good Italian dish, you start with very few good local ingredients. And that's really the amazing thing about Italian food in general. And if you ever go to Italy and you visit these different regions and small towns, what you're tasting and what they're putting on the plate is just a simple dish based off of a certain type of vegetable that grows well in that soil, or a certain animal that grazes well in that area and produces this perfect milk for this type of cheese. And it's so amazing how such simple food can taste so good. And carbonara is no different. So for the ingredients, you have guanciale, which is just a cured pork jowl, very similar to bacon. And it's tough to find in America, so you could just substitute bacon, which is the side or the belly of the pig. And that has about the same fat content as the jowl, and that's really all you're looking for, because what you're gonna do is slowly render that fat down and use it later on in your emulsion. Then you have 3 eggs, pecorino romano cheese, black pepper, and pasta. And for the pasta, spaghetti or rigatoni, those are really the only 2 pasta shapes you'll see this made with in Rome. You might see some fancy restaurants use bucatini or something, but they're really just trying to do too much. After making this dish a bazillion times, I have found that spaghetti and rigatoni, although they're very different shapes, they both work particularly well with this sauce. So the Italians are doing something right. So I'm cutting the guanciale pretty thin. I know some chefs in Rome like to cut into thick cubes because they like a little bit of that pink and a little bit of that white fat in each piece, but I don't think that really works well with spaghetti. Whenever I cut meats or vegetables to pair with a pasta, I like to either mimic the shape or the thickness of the pasta, and so I just think that works better together. You think about like a nice thin strip of guanciale with a nice twirl of the spaghetti, it just works really well together. So this technically isn't even guanciale. This is just a local pork jowl I got from a vendor and salted it for a few days. So it's about as close to guanciale as I'll get here in Southwest Virginia. But this vendor does rotate his pigs a lot, so it's got some good healthy fat on it. So for any of you health nuts that think this is the fattiest, most unhealthy dish in the world, just do it the Italian way and use good local ingredients. So going back to the idea of using good local ingredients, there's actually a town northeast of Rome called Amatrice, in that same region of Lazio and sort of central Italy. And in Amatrice, they have this certain breed of pigs that's apparently perfect for producing this really good guanciale. And that guanciale is what they would use in this carbonara dish, as well as an entire family of dishes in and around Rome. So now I'm gonna salt the guanciale to help break down that fat. And I'm gonna put it in a pan over pretty low heat. What you don't want is for after that fat renders out, it'll start to smoke and burn, and that's not what you want. And it'll also smell like guanciale for the next 3 days, and that's not what you want either. I mean, maybe it is, I don't know. Now as the guanciale cooks, we will drop the spaghetti into the water. And I didn't salt the water too much. My pecorino cheese is already pretty salty and the guanciale is pretty salty, so that's enough. So you really want to use a good pasta, preferably from Italy. Somewhere on the package that says cut with a bronze die or extruded from a bronze die. And what that means is when the dough gets extruded from those bronze dies, it gives it a nice texture, and that texture helps it absorb the sauce better. The other day, I actually bought a pack of organic spaghetti from the store thinking it would be healthier and better, but when I opened it up, the spaghetti was completely smooth on the surface, and that's not what you want, because that smooth texture isn't gonna absorb the sauce at all. And the Italians have their pasta drying and curing down to such a science anyway, that they dry it at such a low temperature for such a long period of time, and they claim that that makes it much healthier and digest better. And I don't know if that's true, but they say it's true, so it must be true. So now the guanciale is nice and cooked and the fat's rendered out, and that's really what you're looking for, is this nice little pool of liquid fat. That's what you're gonna use in the emulsion. This is where we make the sauce, and this is where we make that incredible perfect emulsion that I keep talking about. So I'm gonna mention the word mayonnaise, but don't get scared. We're not making a mayonnaise, but we're using the same science and technique behind making a mayonnaise to create this perfectly emulsified carbonara sauce. So when you make mayonnaise, you take egg yolks and a little bit of vinegar and lemon juice, and then slowly drizzle in canola oil as you whisk it really, really aggressively. And that creates an emulsion because the egg yolk is a natural food emulsifier. And what that means is it joins together liquids of different densities like oil and vinegar. But instead of using those two, what we're gonna use is that nice liquid fat from the guanciale and slowly drizzle that into our egg yolk, and then add a little bit of that starchy pasta water and emulsify all that together to create a perfectly emulsified carbonara sauce that makes this the best carbonara in the world. So first, we'll separate the yolk from the white, which is really easy to do. If you've ever watched more than one cooking show in your entire life, you probably know how to do this. And some people use the entire egg. I actually use the entire egg when I make this at the market, but when I make this at home and create this emulsion, I just use the yolks. So now that I've separated the egg yolks, I take a glass and I just pour that nice liquid fat from the guanciale into the glass and just swirl it around to let it cool off a little. Because what you don't want to do is burn or even really cook your egg yolks. So now, just as you would with the mayonnaise, you start whipping up your egg yolks and slowly drizzle that guanciale fat in to create the emulsion. And you want to do this really slowly. So now that the guanciale fat is completely incorporated, we will add the pecorino romano cheese and the black pepper. And now we mix that together. So that pecorino cheese has really thickened this up. So what I do is take some of that starchy pasta water and add that in as well, but I like to cool it off as well. So I'll add in, we'll just swirl it around in this bowl a little bit and then slowly drizzle that in. And now we get our nice creamy sauce. And that is about the consistency that you want. And I will go ahead and add in our guanciale bits. So now we have the complete sauce all in one bowl here. And now all that's left is, once that pasta is al dente, we simply drop it into this bowl of our emulsified sauce and join it together. So normally what you do if you're making like a tomato sauce is you have the tomato sauce in another pan and you drop the pasta into the tomato sauce short of al dente with a little bit of that starchy pasta water and some olive oil. You shake it aggressively to try and create an emulsion and let it absorb that tomato sauce, but that's not what we're doing here. All we gotta do, since we already made the emulsion, is drop the spaghetti right into our sauce and mix it really aggressively. And this carbonara isn't really meant to be absorbed by the pasta, just coat it perfectly. And that's what we're gonna do. And one more thing about the pasta, when I make this for my customers, I actually make the pasta from scratch. And I make an eggless pasta dough and knead it out and then cut into spaghetti using a machine. But what some people do when they try to be fancy and they make fresh spaghetti pasta, spaghetti carbonara, they'll make an egg-based pasta dough, meaning they'll make a dough out of eggs and flour, cut into spaghetti and serve it with carbonara, but that doesn't really work right because there's eggs in the dough and eggs in the dish and it's egg on egg, it's just too heavy. What you wanna do is use an eggless pasta dough, cut that into your spaghetti and serve that with your carbonara. So now our pasta is al dente. So all we gotta do is drain it a tiny bit just so we don't put too much of that liquid in our sauce because we don't want it to loosen up too much, and drop it right into our sauce. And all we do is coat that spaghetti in our sauce to create, once again, the greatest carbonara in the world.